"If you were a real man," my wife Emily screamed, scrunching a couch cushion in her hands, "we'd have children by now. But no, you can't even satisfy me." "You're being cruel," I said, my voice growing quieter, weaker. "You're even pathetic down there, where it really counts." She threw the pillow on the floor, its mashed contours throwing up two shadows. "Every ex I've had is better than you. You are the poorest excuse for a human being I've ever seen." I grabbed my keys from the counter and headed to the door. "Big boy is making a scene," Emily mocked, her hands on her hips. "Go ahead, run away. We both know you don't have the backbone. You'll be back in 15 minutes, spineless coward." I took one last look at the apartment, at the untouched lasagna I'd spent the afternoon making, at the lotus painting she had picked out, at the matching love seat and couch, at the glass coffee table she had demanded. When had this stopped being home? Maybe the day the lotus painting went up, or maybe when she started finding fault with the way I loaded the dishwasher, or made the bed, or folded clothes, or any of 100 things. I left without a word, taking one last whiff of the melted cheese. There was nothing left to say. "Even my mom thinks you're useless," Emily screamed out the door of our third-floor apartment as I started my Ford F-150 and drove away. Dark blue, 6 years old, and paid for. My baby never screamed, never threw tantrums, always started the first time, just like she did now. I drove away. The night swallowed Emily's voice, leaving an anxious peace. Hey friends, I'm Gio. I'm glad you're joining me and Bentley for this week's deep dive. Please, if you would, leave a like. It tells our mutual friend Algie, that's what I call the algorithm, to set up and take notice. Now back to the story. I drove, brain numb, everything inside me turning to static. Home was, a few minutes from Mission Hills Park down in Henderson. I found myself driving north on Boulder Highway, listening to some late-night radio host telling the highlights for a ball game. I had no destination, no guiding star. I was thinking thoughts that shouldn't be thought. Thoughts I'd promised myself I'd never think again. Scary thoughts. Scarier than Emily. I'm Robert Smith, and I hate my life. At 26, I'd been married 4 years, skipped college to work full-time as a data entry drone at Clark County Data Services. Pays decent, but Emily makes more. Another thing she lords over me. What had started the fight this time? We were eating dinner. I'd made lasagna, 96% lean ground beef, mushrooms, and a white sauce made with ricotta and parmesan. My latest attempt to say I'm sorry, because she said I folded the laundry wrong. I was grating fresh parmesan when I had asked Emily to put her phone down so we could talk. She didn't even look up before the yelling started. Why did I stay? Because good husbands don't abandon their wives. Because we were in love. Because divorces are expensive. Because we've been together for 4 years. Vegas streets are never truly empty, especially this side of midnight. Taxis and Ubers drove past me. It wasn't quiet either. Some deep-cut techno echoed from a nearby club. Somebody yelled, "The end is tomorrow!" And the city smelled of car exhaust and Chinese food. Why did I stay? Because my parents were staunch Catholic and didn't believe in divorce. Dad's toast at our wedding was a sermon about how marriage is a lifetime commitment. Because I didn't think I could find anybody else. Because I'm in the closet, and if I came out, it would destroy my parents' love, my marriage, my life. My entire existence is a game of let's pretend, because the ending is a disaster. I'm weary, I'm trapped, and I don't see a way out. Somehow, I ended up in East Vegas and pulled into a park. The sign said, Lorenzi Park. I found a bench tucked deep in the shadows and let myself fall onto it. If I went back, Emily would scream at me. If I called my parents, they'd sigh, ask what I'd done this time, and take her side. The bench was cold black metal, the kind that never warms up no matter how long you sit. The air smelled faintly of burgers from a food truck across the street, and the sharp green of fresh-cut lawn. Everything else was quiet, in the wrong way. Too quiet. The kind where you hear the world happening without you. A sprinkler clicked somewhere, far off. A car hissed down the highway. A dog barked twice, and then nothing. Even the swing set creaked like it was moving on its own. My phone buzzed in my pocket. My throat tightened instantly, like a fist closing around it. I didn't answer. Emily left a message. I deleted it. The second one, too. I finally listened to the third. Get back here right now. Her voice tore through the silence like a blade. My shoulders shivered. My jaw locked so hard it hurt. Even here in the dark she was still screaming. I stared at the phone until the screen dimmed. The park settled back into its empty hush. Then a voice from the shadow said, calm and almost amused, "That's why somebody invented airplane mode." Chapter 2. He lay on the other end of the bench. Polished white high tops, black lycra bike shorts, a skin-tight white shirt, midriff bare, one arm over his eyes, the other draped to the ground. Give yourself a little distance, he said again, and a little peace. I took his advice and clicked the airplane icon. You give off wife trouble vibes, my friend. I've seen it many times. Yeah, I replied. Why are you here? Do you ever regret the choices you've made? I relaxed a little. Every day. You? Every night of my life. What do you do? I asked. He chuckled. Let's simply say it's freelance customer service, and some customers are hell. Night shift? He nodded, sitting up. Some customers want more than you can give. I hate it, but a man's got to pay rent. I leaned back on the bench, staring at the haze in the sky. Have you ever been in a situation where there is no right answer? There is no such thing as a right or wrong answer. Only outcomes, he said, sitting up. Call me Blue. Blue? I asked. Is that a name? He scoffed. Blue Margarita, at your service. Stage name? Something like that. You in trouble? I asked. Blue scoffed again. Nothing a good pair of running shoes can't handle. Sounds like it's worse for you. I leaned forward and let the fear slip out. I'm gay. It sounded like a kid whispering a confession in a dark church. My leg shook so hard I had to press my hand against it. Would Blue scream at me, like my wife? Would he berate me? Tell me I wasn't much of a man? The shame bit deep. I took a deep breath, fighting the sudden tears flooding my eyes. I hid it to get married because I wanted to make my parents proud, and it's turned into a mistake. My wife is mean and frustrated because I can't. I let my voice trail off. God, don't let anyone see me right now. And she wants kids, and your parents want grandkids, and for some reason, you can't divorce. Every option is bad, I said. Your family is an iron-barred cage. My old family was a prison. What you need is a key. Where do you get this key? Blue tapped the side of his head. You make it. We sat there, a healing silence between us. Blue swiveled on the bench, sitting cross-legged, and looked at me as if reading a book. Let's start with the plus category. What are you working with? I took inventory of what I had. Clothes on my back, truck, my ID cards, my work bag inside my truck. It's got my laptop and charger, phone, I've got a job, but my wife and family can track me down with it. And I don't have a lot of money. He stared at me. Nice cheekbones, honest eyes, hands that know how to work. I see a man who has never allowed himself to be himself. Blue gave me a smirky smile. I'm going to give you a gift, my friend. Permission to be you, to dance, to sing, to sit under a tree and drink lemonade, to call rainbows from the sky. He got up and handed me a small sticker, a unicorn riding a rainbow. Budget Traveler Motel, Blue said, flashing a wad of bills. It's cheap and sleazy, but the locks work, and they take cash. No questions, no names. First night's on me. I can't take your money. He slid down the bench until he was next to me. His nearness made my stomach churn. The guy was too sexy and reminded me of everything I had tried to shut off. My breath caught as that hidden part of me woke up. Blue handed me $200. Buy me dinner sometime, and now you can add one friend to your list. Let's meet here, same time, tomorrow night. Chapter 3. The walls of the Budget Traveler Motel were as thin as lasagna noodles. I heard the Sanchez couple next door arguing over money, the Paul brothers getting high, and a young family with a baby that cried all night. The cable only showed the Home Shopping Network. 4 easy payments of $79.99, and you can be the proud owner of a wind tunnel executive vacuum. I stared at the ceiling for an hour, trying not to feel guilty. I had walked out of my marriage and accepted money from a stranger I don't know how I'm going to pay back. My parents would disown me if they knew the truth, that I was gay. Their mantra was a husband and a wife should work things out no matter what. I don't know what time I drifted to sleep, but I woke about 8, exhausted, but oddly peaceful. The corners of my mouth felt weird. Was I smiling? While I watched the dawn peek around the dusty mauve curtains, I made a decision. I won't face Emily's cruelty again. I can't face my parents' disappointment. Friends? Spent so much time hiding that I didn't have any. I don't have money for a divorce. Only option left? Ghost everyone. Blue had given me permission to be myself. I looked at the small unicorn sticker. It was something a kid would buy from one of the vending machines in a laundromat. Yet, it meant something to me. I didn't know why, but it mattered. I couldn't live my old life any longer. So it was time to make a new one. Be me for once. I had permission now, and nothing scared me more. I called into my job and quit on the spot. Boss wasn't mad, only asked, "What's wrong?" How do I tell him I left my wife because I can't deal with life any longer? I gave him an answer. Sort of. You know those strings that make puppets dance to someone else's tune? It felt like I had just cut one. I traveled across the city to a different branch of the same bank I used, closed the account, and took what little money was left. I drove to a different bank and opened an account. Somehow I needed to vanish, which meant a new job, new phone number, new address, new everything. I started small. I went to the phone dealer. While I waited in line, I took my phone off Do Not Disturb. 17 voicemails and 53 texts, most from Emily. When you stop throwing a tantrum, make sure you take the garbage out. Pathetic. You think you can avoid me? You are nothing without me. You think anyone will love you? And then a couple from my parents. Emily said you blew up at her for no reason and stormed out. We're worried. Damn. My wife had involved them already. Probably convinced them I had a breakdown. And she'd say it in her sweetest voice. No, my parents would never believe me now. What would I even say? Emily is cruel? She's mean? No one would believe me. Maybe I did have a breakdown. However, I had a new number in 15 minutes. Another string cut. Across the street, a dry cleaner's had a help wanted sign. When I asked for a name, I paused. They could track me if I used my real name. But a nickname? Blue wasn't a real name. I could be anybody. I could be myself. I don't go by my first name, I explained. Write down what you want to be called, she said, bored. My mind went blank. What do I want to be called? Who am I? I looked about. A cafe across the street advertised that it carried Miller beer. That's as good as any. I rolled it around on my tongue, tested it out, scribbled it on some scratch paper. Miller. Much better than my old name. No ghosts, no screaming wife, no demanding parents. Blue had given me permission to be me. Miller Walker, I said, and wrote it on the application. Walker was my maternal grandfather's last name, not my mother's. Yes, there's a story there, but it doesn't matter. Not tonight. Not anymore. The pen felt heavier than it should have, like the name itself carried weight, a name that wasn't poison, a name that didn't come with screaming or guilt or the expectation that I'd apologize for existing. A name that didn't belong to Emily or my father or the version of me they'd carved out of fear and habit. Walker. Miller Walker. A step away, a step out, a step towards something that might not hurt. Mr. Walker, we'll call you in a day or two with our decision, the woman muttered. As I walked out, I felt free, a third string cut. Every decision felt like stepping off a cliff, but the ground kept catching me. My truck was next. A used car lot gave me cash, a lot of cash, enough to figure my life out. I deposited it in my new bank. First major purchase, a cheap, used Ford Focus with the F-bomb carved into the hood. The dealer had tried to buff it out, but they didn't do so good. One step closer to a new life, a new me, the real me. I pulled my wallet out and opened it. There lay the unicorn sticker. I had permission to be me. That night, I went back to the bench. Blue was there. Silver short shorts, a mesh tank, and turquoise high tops. Chapter 4. I sat down next to him. He smelled like bubblegum. Blue shifted closer and slid up my left sleeve. A reminder, he said. What is it? He applied one of those fake tattoo stickers to my shoulder. A small rainbow flag. His smile was part tease, part teasing. You can't hide because now you're one of us. He peeled the backing paper away. The rainbow flag was now on my arm, a permanent sign of who I am. We chatted, mostly about my day, about Emily. Do you ever want to just disappear? I finally said. All the time, but I still have to buy groceries and kicks are expensive, he said, gesturing to his shoes. I need to get to work. If you're serious, maybe I can help. How? He gave me that smug smile I was starting to fall in love with. Meet me here, tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Chapter 5. I drove back to the hotel by taking a detour down to Henderson. Was I overreacting? Had living with Emily been as bad as I remembered? Was facing my parents the disaster I always imagined? It took about half an hour, but I found myself in the old neighborhood, back in Henderson. It looked the same, but I didn't feel the same. I drove around, checking on a restaurant, trolling past my old high school, even slowly passing my parents' house. A neat two-story house with a yard the size of a postage stamp. The living room lights glowed. A hint of longing woke. I wished things had been different growing up. Wished I had the courage to come out. I never did. Do I want to face them? Explain I'm gay? No, I didn't need to endure their guilt trips. I sped off, circling the streets until I arrived at the cul-de-sac apartment complex I used to live in. Emily's car was parked in a stall. The third-floor apartment's lights were on. Somebody was barbecuing nearby. Not Emily. She hated grills, wouldn't let us have one. I thought about walking up, opening the door and grabbing some clothes, a toothbrush, maybe even my running shoes. What would I need that would be worth facing her again? I drove around until I found a payphone. Those still exist, you just have to look. The one I found was in front of a movie theater. I called my former home. Emily answered. I said, hello. One word, one innocent greeting. You'd think it as simple as pie. It wasn't. Her first words were, you self-righteous son of a... That made my decision easy. I didn't say anything else, simply hung up before she could finish. If I have any chance of being myself, it's best I disappear. Chapter 6. 8 in the a.m. in the city that never sleeps. I arrived at the black metal bench carrying 2 coffees. The park looked normal, green lawns spreading down to the lake, palm trees arching overhead. A middle-aged jogger in a black tee ran past, nodding at me. His earbuds were too loud. He played Beastie Boys, I think. Ducks squawked in the pond. Some young mother with a stroller walked the trail talking to her phone. Blue showed up 10 minutes after 8, hair a little mussy, eyes with bags, and the silver shorts were wrinkled. He also wore a gray hoodie. Rough night? I asked. He accepted the coffee and sipped it. Ever heard of a club called the Back Alley? One of my clients was a little too demanding. Had to call HR. Human resources work at night? I asked. His smile, though tired, was genuine. No, HR is the bouncer. Keeps a baseball bat handy. I didn't know if Blue was joking, so I nodded. The Back Alley, what is it? A gay club, Blue said. It's not your scene. Why not? It's not one of the nice ones. Blue yawned and stretched. I need food, real food. Come on, I'll buy. Think of it as your first date with a man. But you should sleep. Got a few hours last night. Time to step out. Blue took my hand and we walked to his car, a silver Acura Integra. Your freelance work must pay well, I said, running my hand across the smooth finish. Repeat clients are grateful, he replied. They gave it to you? With kind of a smug smile, Blue said, he likes my work. I slid into the passenger seat, luxuriating in the softness of the leather, the new car smell, the scent of citrus cologne. It wasn't Blue's. Chapter 7. We dropped by Blue's apartment. He lived in the basement of a nice house, though still in East Vegas. Let me grab a shower and get changed. Make yourself at home. The front yard was a collection of rocks and cactus with a few stubborn flowers. I followed Blue down 10 concrete steps. He unlocked a white door with a peephole, pushed it open, and flicked on the lights. The place was a disaster. 20 or 30 pizza boxes leaned like a cardboard landslide. A dozen Chinese takeout containers sat open and fossilized. Clothes were everywhere. A life-sized cardboard cutout of Lenny Kravitz with a guitar stood in the corner like he was judging the whole scene. The sink was crammed with a month's worth of dishes, and the dining room table? At least I think that's what was under the pile of old mail, dirty clothes, and random junk. Was barely visible. The place reeked. Old food, sweat, deodorant, unwashed clothes. The light-blocking drapes were closed and dusty, giving the whole apartment a damp cave vibe. Blue disappeared into one of the rooms. I needed to keep my hands busy, and my mind from spiraling again. It was wrong. This wasn't my apartment, but I cleaned to process life. I opened the dusty curtains to let some light in, and cracked a window to let the air move. I gathered dishes and pulled out a chair to stack them on. With a resigned sigh, I reached into the putrid sink water that smelled like a swamp, found a half-full container of dish soap and searched for the dishwasher. It didn't exist. I zoned out as I washed the dishes. Wash, rinse, dry, stack on a shelf, repeat. Wash, rinse, dry, stack on a shelf, repeat. 30 minutes later, the door opened. Blue stepped out, hair damp, towel around his neck, jeans half-buttoned, shirtless. He froze. I tried not to stare. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Washing dishes," I said. "Why?" Something silly opened up inside me. "Lenny hired me. Said this place needs a good scrub." Blue leaned like he'd walked into the wrong apartment. He glanced at the cardboard cutout as if Lenny might confirm or deny the claim. "Lenny hired you," he echoed. I shrugged, rinsing another plate. "He said you were a lost cause, needed someone to take care of you." Blue snorted, a real laugh, sharp and surprised. "Lenny doesn't talk." "You haven't been listening," I said. Blue folded his arms and cocked his head, as if trying to hear something. "What's he paying you?" "Living in motels gets expensive. How about I sleep on your couch? I'll clean this place up," I said, nodding at the pizza boxes. "I'll cook real food, split rent, utilities, whatever you need." "A live-in maid?" I rolled my eyes and went back to the dishes. Blue disappeared into his room again. When he returned, he held a French-made outfit, frilly apron, and all. "I've got your uniform," he said, a teasing tone tickling his voice. Where did he even get such a thing? Why does he even have such a thing? I glanced over and gave him a simple flat no. Blue grinned. "Shame, you'd rock the apron." I shook my head, but a small laugh escaped me. Unexpected, unguarded. Blue's smile softened, like he'd been waiting for that sound. He leaned against the counter, watching me work. "You know, you don't have to do this." "I know," I said. "You're not my maid." "I know," I said. "You're not whatever this is." I set a clean bowl on the towel and finally looked at him. I needed something to do. Blue's expression shifted, less amused now, more understanding. He took in the open curtains, the cracked window, the stack of clean dishes, the way the air already smelled less like a swamp and more like a place a person could breathe. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer. Couldn't. "You're going to be okay," he whispered, hugging me from behind. My hands kept moving. Wash, rinse, dry, stack on a shelf, repeat. Because if I stopped, everything inside me might spill out. Blue didn't push. He didn't tell me to stop. He didn't tell me I was doing it wrong. He just stayed there, letting me clean his disaster of an apartment, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Blue's arms tightened just a little, like he was afraid too much pressure might break me. His chin brushed my shoulder for a half-second, before he pulled back, giving me space again. Not leaving, just easing off. "You don't have to talk," he said. "Just breathe." I tried. The air felt thick, like it had to fight its way into my lungs. My hands kept moving on their own. Wash, rinse, dry, stack on shelf, repeat. The rhythm the only thing keeping me from falling apart. Blue stayed behind me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, but not touching now. Just there, a presence, a witness. "You're safe here, Miller," he said quietly. Safe. The word hit something deep, something bruised. I swallowed hard, blinking fast, the plate in my hands blurred. Blue noticed. I felt him shift, like he was about to reach out again. But he stopped himself. "Hey," he murmured, softer than before. "You don't have to hold it together for me." I shook my head. "If I stop, I'll..." I don't know. Then don't stop, he said. Do what you need. So I did. Wash, rinse, dry, stack on a shelf, repeat. The motion steadied me, anchored me, kept the storm inside me from spilling out onto the floor. Blue leaned against the counter beside me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. He didn't speak again, didn't try to fix anything. He just existed next to me, quiet and solid, like a wall I could lean on without asking. The apartment was still a wreck. The air still smelled like old takeout and dust. But with the window cracked open and Blue standing there, the place felt less suffocating. The silence evolved into freedom. It felt like a place I could rest. Chapter 8. 2 weeks to the day after moving in with Blue, life had taken on a new rhythm. I'd gotten the job at the dry cleaners. I worked days. Blue worked nights. Feelings were developing, at least on my side. Blue had fallen asleep on the couch one morning, his face tired and vulnerable. Something in my heart melted. Not just gratitude, but a longing to know him. The stirrings of love had formed. Before I left for work, I found a blanket and covered him. When I got home, he was still curled up, like he hadn't moved all day. I slept on the couch, cleaned the apartment, made it a home. Our home. Blue never complained about my meals. He especially loved my lasagna. Life had evened out. As I was washing dishes one evening, Blue walked close behind me, his hands resting gently on my hips, and he whispered, "I like having you around." I enjoyed his warmth behind me, so I teased, "So you don't get dishpan hands?" "Something like that," he whispered, close to my ear. One morning, we drove about 10 minutes before pulling into the parking lot of the original omelet house on West Charleston. The big yellow sign with a cartoon chef hat looked exactly the same as it had when I was a kid. Sun-bleached, cheerful, and a little crooked, like it had survived every Vegas summer without complaint. The lot was half full. Construction workers in dusty boots, a couple of nurses coming off night shift, an elderly man reading a newspaper in his car with the engine running. The smell of bacon and coffee drifted out every time the door opened. Blue parked crookedly, like someone who hadn't slept enough to care. "Best omelets in the city," he said, rubbing his eyes. "And they don't judge if you look like you've been awake for 3 days." Inside, the place buzzed with familiar diner chaos, clattering plates, sizzling griddles, the low hum of overlapping conversations. The walls were covered in framed photos of celebrities who'd eaten there decades ago, all smiling like they'd discovered the meaning of life in an omelet. A hostess led us to a booth with cracked red vinyl seats. Blue slid in and slumped against the wall, hoodie half unzipped, silver shorts peeking out like a secret he wasn't trying very hard to hide. "You okay?" I asked. Blue shrugged. "I've had worse nights. At least this one didn't end up with a broken heel or a broken nose." I still couldn't tell when he was joking. A waitress with a ponytail and a voice like gravel appeared with 2 waters. "You boys ready?" Blue didn't look at the menu. Black forest omelet, extra mushrooms, and a Coke. I blinked. "I thought you said you needed real food." "This is real food," he said, nudging my foot under the table. "Order something that makes you feel alive." I scanned the menu, overwhelmed by choices I hadn't let myself consider in years. Emily always ordered for me. Emily's always had opinions about what was appropriate. I cleared my throat. "I'll have the Black Forest, too." Blue grinned. "Good man." The waitress scribbled and vanished. For a moment, the world felt warm and safe. The clatter of dishes, the smell of butter, the sunlight slanting through the blinds. A place where no one knew my name. A place where I could be Miller. Then Blue leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes sharp despite the exhaustion. "You said you wanted to disappear," he said quietly. "If you mean it, I know someone who can help. But once you start, you don't get to go back." My pulse thudded in my throat. I don't want to go back. Blue nodded slowly, like he'd been waiting for that exact sentence. Then eat up, he said. Today's the day your old life ends. Chapter 9. His friend was a lawyer. We filed for a name change, retroactive so it would amend the birth certificate. I hesitated. It meant I no longer carried my family's name. Their legacy would end with me. My father would never forgive me. He'd wield guilt like a weapon and thrash me with it. Emily would sneer that if I wasn't a man before, what good was a name change now? Mom would cry and ask where she had failed. Could I live with that? I paused before signing. Blue offered a soft smile. The lawyer waited with a neutral, pleasant expression. A fresh start. It's what I needed. I signed and made Miller Walker real. Legally, fully, finally. It was finalized 3 weeks later. Chapter 10. At 8 weeks, I was still sleeping on Blue's couch. But the place smelled like a home now. Fresh bread, clean laundry, the good clothes dry cleaned and hanging straight. The garbage was gone, the sink shone. Fresh flowers lived on the dining room table. Every day I went to work. Every night Blue went to work. He didn't tell me much about his job, and I didn't push, but I made him breakfast every morning when he got back. One afternoon, while putting away paperwork he'd left on the counter, I found a stack of medical reports. Monthly, neatly dated. Blood work, full STD panels, HIV screens, all clean. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or worried that he needed them. I organized them and set them on his bed. My life is different now. I still think of Emily, but it is like a bad dream fading away. Same with my parents. They'd never know what happened to me, and I was fine with that. Miller Walker was his own man. I even had a new driver's license and a birth certificate with a new name. I spun the vacuum around the apartment. 600 square feet, one real bedroom, one room bigger than a closet used for Blue's extensive clothes, a living room, bathroom with only a shower, and a kitchen/dining room. Small for 2 people, but I didn't complain, and Blue actually thanked me for the food. Though I lived on the couch, this felt more of a home than living with Emily did. We disagreed, but it wasn't anything like fighting with Emily. Blue let me be me. Someone knocked on the door. I froze. Blue was asleep. I checked out the peephole. 2 police officers? Nobody knew I was here, except my work. Were they here for Blue? He wandered out of the bedroom, dressed in slacks and a nice shirt. He glanced at me. I mouthed, "Police." Blue nodded. The police knocked again, sharp, loud, with enough force to rattle the dishes on the shelf. Blue opened the door, his mouth grim. "Sorry, officers. I was getting ready for work." "Bruce Margits?" I hate that name. My friends call me Blue. What's this about? The officer pulled out a small book from his pocket, flipped a few pages, and looked up. "Can we come inside? We have some questions that need answers." It wasn't a request. Chapter 11. The officers entered, their boots heavy on the hardwood floors. Not sure what to do, I played host. "It's hot outside. Can I get you some cold lemonade? I've got biscuits rising. They won't take long." "And you are?" "Miller Walker," I said. "My boyfriend," Blue quickly replied. The officer narrowed his eyes, and I brought a couple of chairs from the dining room in. "Thanks," one of the officers said, sitting down. I poured the lemonade and handed each person a glass. "What is this about?" Blue asked. "A little more than 2 months ago," the officer said, referring to his notebook, "Henderson PD issued a Clark County bulletin. A missing persons report was filed by Emily Smith, Denise Smith, and Harry Smith. Emily's husband, Robert Smith, is currently unaccounted for." My wife, my parents, my soul sunk. I was going to be sick. I gripped the back of the chair, my fingers indenting into the vinyl. Blue glanced at me. The officer continued. According to witnesses, he was being verbally assaulted by Emily Smith and walked away. Sold his truck for cash. Is that a crime? Blue asked. No. The officer made a quick note in his notebook. According to DMV records, he changed his name to Miller Walker. The cops had found me. I stopped breathing. They'd report back to my family. My family would destroy everything I had built. They'd demand I return. Good men don't leave their wives. My dad had said. I was trapped. I dropped into the seat, falling off, thudding on the hardwood floor. No! The officer stopped talking. I'm never going back. It came out as a shout, a desperate scream. You can't make me. I haven't done anything wrong. I was breathing heavy, hyperventilating. My heart burned. Calm down, the officer said, hands raised in a surrender motion. We're not doing anything. We're just looking for you, the other officer said. My breaths became gasps. I knew what I had to do. I had a duffel. I jumped off the floor. My hand went cold as I grabbed my bag and shoved my clothes into it. Blue grabbed my arm. What are you doing? Leaving Nevada. I grabbed my phone charger, stuffed it in. My toothbrush was next. Where will you go? Blue took my hand and held it, preventing me from grabbing my accounting notebook. Somewhere they'll never find me. Maybe Montana or Mexico. Blue held me, pinning my arms to my sides. Calm down. You never have to see them again. We'll move. This place is feeling small anyway. My breaths came heavy. Vegas and its suburbs have 3 million people, Blue whispered. They'll never find us. The officer cleared his throat. You don't need to move. We are satisfied that you are in good health and that leaving was voluntary. In cases like this, we will report that you are safe and do not wish to be contacted. You can do that? Blue asked. Case solved, missing person found, the officer said, pulling a card from his wallet. Call this number. They have resources that can help. I took the card with my left hand, the one that still held my wedding ring. Why did I still wear it? The life of Robert Smith was over. I am Miller Walker now. Maybe it was time to release the past. I shifted free of Blue, slid my wedding ring off my finger, and handed it to the officer. Give her this. I never want to see Emily again. Chapter 12. After the officers left, Blue made me sit and breathe. He disappeared into the kitchen and came back carrying a glass half full of a honey-colored liquid with 3 ice cubes. Drink, he ordered. I sniffed, smelling the sharp alcohol tang. What is it? Brandy imported from Austria. The scent rose warm and sweet, dried apricot, vanilla, a little oak. The ice cracked softly as I lifted the glass. It glowed like late sunlight in my hand, steady and golden, nothing like the chaos still rattling inside my chest. Blue watched me, arms folded, waiting for me to take the first sip. It burned down, my tongue going numb for a moment. The aftertaste was warm. Cinnamon and apricots. I coughed. Blue disappeared into the bedroom and came back tossing a suit at me. Get dressed. We're going out on the town. Let me show you what I do. I remember this suit. I'd had it dry cleaned. A nice one, Italian weave. The label read, Canale. I dressed. The fabric was smooth on my skin, and it felt like it had been made for me. I felt like the poor ugly duckling pretending to be, well, the same poor ugly duckling. You clean up pretty nice, Blue said, slightly nodding and slightly smiling. We drove to the Bernini Hotel, where a valet took the car. Blue spent a moment asking him about his family. We rode the elevator to the top floor, to the most exclusive restaurant in Vegas. The Regal, one of the rare Michelin-starred restaurants in Vegas. Its head chef was trained in Paris, led restaurants in New York and Washington, D.C., and hosted celebrities from heads of state to stars and musicians. Classic French fine dining. It was always booked, especially on holidays, and a popular spot for anniversaries and proposals. Dark wood tables with white tablecloths, a custom-woven wooden bar, a live band, and gold filigree mirrors strategically placed. The balcony had a view of the Strip. Reservations were made months in advance. I'd never been here, but Blue had. He walked up to the maitre d' and nodded. The maitre d' smiled and checked his list. He ushered us to a table for two. Blue ordered lobster thermidor, lobster meat in a creamy wine mustard sauce and served in the shell. I ordered the same. Chapter 13. I'd never danced with another man before. Emily never liked dancing, said it made me look sweaty and awkward, like I was trying too hard. I'd believed her for years. But Blue was something else entirely. He took my hand without hesitation, his palm warm against mine, and guided me onto the dance floor as if this were the most natural thing in the world. He led with quiet confidence, one hand at my back, the other holding mine steady. I didn't have to think. I just followed the gentle pressure of his fingers and the surety of his steps. The room smelled of beef bourguignon and wine, layered with the soft musk of Blue's cologne. Something warm, something clean, something that made my chest loosen every time I breathed it in. The lights were low, the gold filigree mirrors catching the glow of the band stage lights and scattering them like tiny constellations. Then the band shifted into a slower song, the kind that made the whole room exhale at once. Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls, a 90s slow dance classic, the kind of song that wraps itself around you, all longing and ache and wanting to be seen. Blue pulled me a little closer. And right there, in the middle of a Michelin-starred restaurant, high above the Vegas Strip, with the city glittering beneath us and his hand steady at the small of my back, I realized I was falling in love. Not the frantic, desperate kind I'd been taught to accept, not the conditional kind I'd lived with, but something quiet, something steady, something that felt like being chosen. I laid my head on his shoulder and whispered. Part of me hoped he didn't hear. Part of me did. I saw the medical reports. He stiffened slightly, his hands tightening at my waist, but he didn't let me go. I continued. Your world, my world, they're so different. Today, the police were here looking for me, and I have so much baggage. You could have anyone. He whispered back. Are you asking why I keep you around? Timidly, I nodded. He paused and looked me in the eye. We make a good team. My words rushed out. I think I'm falling in love with you. Blue sharply inhaled. Don't say that. My life can be pretty dangerous. Again, I nodded. But I'm getting tired, he said. Maybe a change is what I need. For me? I whispered back, swallowing the panic in my stomach. Blue stepped back, holding my hands. No, with you, because I'm falling for you as well. I'd never been kissed like that before. When they say you see fireworks, these weren't just the little kinds you set off in the street, but the kind that fill the sky, the kind that fills you with wonder, the kind that promises a better future. Chapter 14. I didn't find this out until later, when I ran into my aunt at a grocery store. The officers had filed their reports and drove to Henderson, to my old house. Emily had some friends over, 6 or 7. I never learned why. Let's just call it her book club. Mom was there, and my aunt. That's who I heard it from. Emily had made dinner, and all were gathered around the table. I heard it was chicken cordon bleu with white cheese sauce she'd bought at one of those warehouse stores. There was a knock that startled everybody. My aunt got up and answered, then ushered the police in. Their first words froze the room. You are Emily Smith? Yes. We have news about the missing person case and a delivery. Mom gripped the table to steady herself. It took you long enough, someone said. My aunt thought it was Emily, but she couldn't be sure. The officer proceeded. Mr. Robert Smith is in good health and living with his boyfriend. He does not wish to be contacted. Did you say boyfriend? Mom rose from her seat. Give us his address. I cannot do that, the officer said. That's when Emily shouted, Give me your badge numbers. I will report this. The officer very calmly handed her a manila envelope with her name on it. He never wants to see you again, and he was packing while we were there. Why? Emily said, unfastening the envelope. He's moving to Mexico, the other officer said. The whole room paused as if catching its breath. Emily stammered, then yelled, To get away from me? But I'm his wife. Her face reddened as her voice increased in volume. I'm only reporting what I saw, ma'am. Emily slid the contents out of the envelope. My former wedding ring, the packet of divorce papers, and the wedding announcement of Miller Walker to Blue Margarita, to be held in Acapulco. Date, the day after the divorce is finalized. Emily's face went several shades of scarlet, and her mouth sealed shut. For a moment no one moved. Even the air felt stunned. The officers turned to leave. Ma'am, you have been served. All communication will proceed through lawyers. Mr. Walker and his attorney requested, and Judge Withers confirmed, there will be no face-to-face contact, no mediation, and any attempts to force contact will be seen as harassment and may result in a restraining order. He's divorcing me, Emily screamed. And that's when Mom started laughing, an oddly relieved tone. It's about time. Everyone stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Mom just grabbed her purse and said, About time he figured out what the rest of us already knew. The end. Thank you, friends, for joining me. I tried some new ideas for this story, so let me know in the comments what you thought, or if it sounded just like home for you. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. I'll see you next time. Same Geo time, same Geo channel. Peace, my friends. I love you all.